Thank you for joining me. I hope you had a great day on this Friday. It is Friday. This felt like a long week. Was it a long week? It felt like a long week. It felt like a long week to me. Hi, Patel. Anyway. But today we are going to be talking about what to expect on your first medical coding job. You know, if you are curious as to what happens when you are first starting out, what are some of the expectations that are going to be asked of you? What are some of the things that you should be on the lookout for? Some of the things that you should be aware of. We're going to be talking about that tonight. Hi, V. Yes. Hi, Yolanda. Yes, it is TGIF. Thank you for all the blue hearts. Let's see. So, it was freaking cold these last 2 days. Like leaving the house, it was like really cold, like in the freaking 20s. This morning when I left the house, it was real feel 21 degrees. I'm like, are you serious? Really? So, cold weather, it's coming. Hi, NC. Thank you for joining me. So, but yeah, anyway, we are going to be talking, if you're just joining, we're going to be talking about what to expect as a brand new medical coder. All right, since we got a good little crowd going, if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the chat box. And just keep in mind that every place is different. So sometimes some of what I say may not apply to a place that you are going to be working at. It really all depends. But these are just some of the things you should know. Mrs. Yes, no lie. I live in South Texas too. Yeah, we are not used to this. And I'm about tempted to get that battery powered. It's like a battery powered jacket that I saw, and it's like a little warmer thing. So I'm like, I don't know, if this keeps it up, I'm gonna have to get that. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue. I'm a medical coder. Today I am talking about what to expect on your first job as a brand new medical coder. So let us begin. Okay, what do you expect when you first start out? You know, is there going to be somebody who is teaching you? Is there somebody that is going to be guiding you? Are you going to be in one place? Are you going to only be coding for one thing? Or are you going to be coding for everything? So we're going to talk about it today. All right. Now, when you are first starting out in the real world, yes, you have seen and you have experienced the whole "we want everybody to have experience" line. But now that you've been hired, now it is your time to step up your game. So hopefully they told you in the beginning what you are going to be doing. Some medical coders are assigned to one particular clinic. Wherever they need somebody, they will have either the listing was for that coder, or they will assign it to you as you're hired on. And sometimes you are the only one that is there working with that particular clinic. Sometimes you're working with a partner and you're splitting the workload. So it depends on the volume of encounters for that clinic. Sometimes it is just you do a week on and your partner does a week on and you take a week off, but you're using that second week to complete all of your encounters from the first week. And that is how sometimes they work in some of these facilities. And sometimes you're just there by yourself, so everything is on you. And you're working, in that instance, you are working things in a priority way. And your facility will tell you which encounters to work first sometimes. Sometimes they will set the priority, and other times that will be all on you. So it really all depends where you're going. Some places you will work in a pool of coders, and you will work from a queue. So when you are working from a queue, just keep this in mind, that you will get whatever you put your hands on. Whatever you touch and whatever you open is whatever you have to code. So it's a mixed bag. And so sometimes it's going to be an ortho chart, sometimes it's going to be a cardio chart, sometimes it may be, a family practice chart. It really all depends on how they do their workload. But some facilities are like that. When I worked for a level 1 trauma hospital, I was part of a pool of coders. So what I did was I had my work queue. So all of the encounters that came in, they would be listed by patient, they would be listed by provider, and then all of their other pertinent information, but nothing about what they were seeing for, right? So you just click on one of them and it brings up whatever it is. If it's a same-day surgery, you start coding. And in my case, that's what I was doing. So what I would do is I work through that encounter and then complete it and go on to the next one. And that was how I did my work queue. Now, because I worked weird hours, I usually worked in the evening when I did this, and some of the other coders would skip charts, which is a hazard of the field. Sometimes veteran coders will do that because they get lazy or they get complacent. And if you didn't like that statement, it's too bad because even veteran coders get lazy. Brand new coders get lazy because they don't want to do something. It seems too hard. They're too scared. They don't want to ask. And that's the wrong way to be. If you're always running from encounters that make you feel uncomfortable because of it seems like it's hard, it is always going to be hard if you never face it head on. Now, when I got all the junk stuff that was left, and by junk stuff, I meant that because I worked for a level 1 trauma hospital, I would see some pretty gnarly accidents. And so I really got some of those ones that had a lot of diagnoses and a lot of complicated procedures, but that was okay because it's training, right? Training you for your next position, I always say. But I would let my supervisor know when something like that was really catastrophic. And by really catastrophic, I mean like there was 12 diagnoses and maybe 5 or 6 procedures that I had to do for one. And so on something like that, that's understandable that it would take you about an hour to do. And so she, my boss was really cool, and she was like, well, yeah, that does seem like it's an hour. Because you're getting a lot of these hard ones, because as I go through, you do get audited, so you will be audited. Sometimes, and I should stop really quick, because for new coders, sometimes before they assign you to a clinic, they will have you code a group of encounters or a group of records. And as you do 10, let's just say you start off with 10, and you have to hit a certain percentage. If they're going to test you on 50 total records, they will give you 10 at a time, and then you code those 10, you give it back to them, they look and they audit, make sure everything's okay, and then you can send it through. And if not, they can catch the error before it gets sent through. And they will do this with brand new coders a lot of times because you can pass a proficiency test, you can have a certification, but they really want to make sure that you are coding it appropriately before you submit it so that there's no errors that come back or whatever. So that's why they try to do that to you. If they're seeing that you're making a lot of mistakes, then they're going to say, okay, well, maybe this isn't a good fit, or, maybe we can just coach you along. Maybe it's because, you weren't trained in this or whatever. Or it may just be the rules of that particular facility that may get you. So they will work with you. Obviously, if they hired you on, it was hard work to get you hired on. So they're not just going to fire you easily. So don't even think it. Don't even say, well, Blue, it's okay. It happens. When you're just starting out, you will have questions. But you got to just do the best you can. So make sure that you're capturing everything and you're following the rules, and you pay attention when they're telling you, we have this particular rule at our facility here and we do this. Okay, so that's something that they do. They will audit you on those first ones, but as you get assigned to the clinic, they will pull records. Sometimes they do it monthly, other times they do it quarterly. So it really all depends on the facility again. And if they are testing or if they are auditing you monthly, the lead or your supervisor or somebody in data quality will pull a set number of records. And usually Sometimes it'll go on the percentage of records that you've done. They'll take 10% of your records, or sometimes they will have like, okay, we will just pull 15 or we'll pull 20 records. And so that's a little low, especially if you're coding a higher number than that. But different facilities have different things. So they will pull your records, check them, and see, did you appropriately code? If you're missing something, you'll get what's called a ding. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that that ding is actually correct, because these auditors are not infallible. They will inherently make mistakes of their own. So if you feel like you have a valid reason for why you selected the code that you did, make sure that you have an official reference, either your coding manuals, or researching through Coding Clinic, the American Hospital Association Coding Clinic, because those are some of those questions that are kind of like those really oddball questions, and a lot of times you can use those to supplement your argument. Everybody always asks, did you look in Coding Clinic? And say, for example, you had a situation with a particular fracture, and you say, okay, well, you're looking at buccal fractures, and you find a perfect example of something that sort of resembles your situation, and then you can give it to them. This is why I chose this. And so you can't really argue with official resources. And so that's why I say always use official resources. Don't go to someplace like these discussion boards. You can go to the discussion boards if you see that they have a reference and a resource, because the good ones will let you know, I found this, or I know this because of this resource. And if they don't, then you can't cite that as part of your like argument, of an argument, meaning your reasoning why you select a certain code. So, get familiar with your coding clinics, get familiar with your book, and especially if you have something, don't just accept that they say that it's wrong. Hopefully the auditor will also explain to you why it's wrong, not just, I code it this way because this is the way we do it, this is the way we've always done it. No, there needs to be a reason why. And it's not that you're trying to be argumentative, it's just that we are held to ethical standards. AHIMA has the AHIMA Standards of Ethical Coding. Now, whether you are certified with the American Academy of Professional Coders, or whether you are certified with AHIMA, the American Health Information Management Association, or you don't even have a coding credential, but you act in the capacity as a medical coder, you will follow these coding rules. And so this says that we must follow coding guidance. We must follow official coding guidance, and we must not just basically go along to get along, to put it colloquially. Don't go along to get along. And somebody telling you this is the way we do it, so you're going to do it this way, and them not having a resource to back that up, that's not an excuse, because at the end of the day, your name is on that record. Whatever you touch, whatever you submit, you have to answer for it. You have to explain why you chose that. And while people make mistakes, if you are repeatedly submitting something that you know is wrong, you can be in just as much trouble as the doctor for that. So just make sure that you know what you're selecting, that you're not just going along to get along, that you're actually understanding why. And if your auditor gets frustrated, because sometimes they do, they have to tell people all day long that they're wrong. So they tend to get yelled at, because no coder wants to be told that they're wrong. But it happens. It happens to all of us. It even happens to me. And as much as I know, as much as I read, there's just sometimes it's just like, really, I didn't know that. And you learn from it, you move on, and you don't continue to make the same mistakes. And don't fall into the trap of, I don't want to be told that I'm wrong, so I'm just going to continue to do it my way, and I don't like that person, so I'm just going to continue to do the opposite of what they tell me. That's the wrong way to be, because number one, you're not hurting yourself or your supervisor, you're hurting the patient. Then you're hurting the doctor. Then you're putting yourself in jeopardy, because are you coding it appropriately? So a lot of things to think about when you are first starting out. Hi, Rebecca. Thank you for all the blue hearts. Hi, Jamie. Thank you for the blue hearts. Hi, Whitney. I'm doing great. Jamie, trying to stay warm, and it's only 8 degrees here in Kentucky. Oh, Christina, Jamie, it's 4 in New York. Wow. So I should not be complaining. But still, for us Texans, we are not okay. This is not cool. Like New York, you expect it to be cold, right? But still not that cold, you know. But still, y'all stay cool, stay warm. But moving right along, so you will have audits. Be expecting those, and it's not personal. The auditor is just doing their job. Okay, so remember that. And the best way to keep from making any mistakes is to be sharp on your guidelines, be sharp on your coding clinics, the new ones when it comes out, you know, always make sure that you're researching those so that you know the proper rules for coding. uh yeah, 4 degrees is really, that's very, oh, reminds me of what we went through last year, and that was not cool. The nightmares. So anyway, there's also meetings, coding meetings. You will have coder meetings. Every place that I've worked, except for the Cancer Therapy Research Center, I had to go to a coder meeting every month. And typically it's for your education, because some employers will offer you free continuing education units for attending these meetings. Sometimes it is just a staff meeting and they go over like problems that they're seeing, like recurrent problems. If there's some remedial coding that needs to be taught again, that's usually the time that they will do that. We don't do that anymore. We had stopped for a long time, even before COVID. I mean, my facility in the beginning when I first got here and we were under this wonderful, amazing supervisor named Laura, every month. And I loved the way that she did things, because it's very important that coders are educated. And sometimes, even with veteran coders, they can slide into this, I know what I'm doing, I've done it this way, I don't need to learn anything else. Yes, you do. And so sometimes we have to get reminded. And so what Laura would do is that she would have the girls from every clinic get up and present in front of everybody. This did a couple of things. This worked on those coders' presentation skills, which helps with communication. And it also demonstrated their knowledge of that clinic. That way, Laura could kind of check and make sure that they're actually coding appropriately, like for peds or like for ortho, like for pain or whatever. And she would be able to check what they know and being able to see how those coders taught other coders. And sometimes that's what you need. You need to be able to hear things from other people so that you're not just listening to the same old thing or the same old presenter with the same droning voice. You get some variety. So that was what Laura did. I really like that approach. I like the educational aspect of coding. And like I said, I think a lot of coders get away from it and they lose those skills. And you don't want to lose those skills. These are things that we have to be sharp on. Giving presentations, having public speaking, being able to do those things. That is what coders should have in their arsenal as far as like what they need to know. And with being able to present your knowledge and what you know about this clinic, you're also cross-training other coders. So there's other things. It just begets more good things when you do stuff like that. So we haven't done that in forever, like I said. So it really all goes back to leadership at that point. When you are, sometimes you have that and sometimes you don't. For some places, when I worked for Level 1 Trauma Hospital, it was the leads that did it. So that was their job, was to be educators. Laura was very big on, if you are a coder, you have to be able to educate. And I'm like, that is so true. But she was always a huge advocate of that. And some of these girls, they would cry and whine and moan and go on, but it was good for them. They were better for it. And, you know, like I said, if leadership is not like that, you know, that is something, if they ask you, hey, does anybody have any suggestions how we can make the department better? I think that's a great idea, because if somebody needs to fill in for somebody else, you never know. And I think that that's a good thing, because coders should always want to be cross-trained anyway. This gives you options to be able to go anywhere. And the other thing that you should expect is doing a workload report. You have to be able to put onto a workload report, and it's typically in an Excel document, and it's typically sent to you every single time. I've always had a document sent to me. I've never had to create one on my own. And it is a very simple document. You just plug in numbers basically, and it does all the calculating for you. So you'll kind of put in like what you received and what you completed, how many hours did you spend, or what kind of time did you spend outside of coding. Because if you are doing something that's unrelated to coding, that should be on a workload report so that you don't have to account for that time. In an 8-hour day, if I say, for instance, I spend 2 hours, which I would never put this on my workload report because I think my boss would be mad. You'd probably hear her screaming. But if I spend 2 hours with my providers, which I have before, but I don't necessarily nickel and dime all this time anymore, because I know how to adjust my time where I can complete what I need to complete in a day. I have a 90 encounter a day quota at my facility. And this is because I work in a specialty clinic. So if you're thinking, wow, 90 seems kind of low, Blue, it's the average of the time that they're looking at. We have evaluations every 6 months. So in that 6 month time, they want you to be averaging on average per day 90. So if, for example, I don't hit 90 in a day, say for instance, I only hit 80 because I was at a meeting and I was doing a presentation, or I was doing other things, that other time that I was not coding is not going to be counted against me. Therefore, it's going to show accurately what I did when I was working, right? It's going to show if I was on target, whatever I have to do, 12 per hour, whatever. So that's when you have to make sure that you keep track of your time. But if you're showing excessive time that you are not coding, it either better be because you're in training or like you're training with like the computers or whatever, because every facility will have their own like private training. Like we have HIPAA and we have other security things that we have to do training for. So that time can get taken out of our coding time. So, but if you're just talking with your friends and talking with other coders and you're just visiting, you can't put that down on your workload report. I've seen coders try to do this, and that does not work. Miss says, audit sounds scary, but they're a learning lesson. Yes, they are. Hi, Tawana. Thank you for the blue heart. But yes, audits are scary. They will make you kind of question yourself the very first time it happens. And you may be thinking, man, do I know anything? But you have to think that these auditors have experience and they see codes constantly. They're already completed. So they're taking knowledge basically from everybody. There's things that I've taught auditors that they've said, well, Blue, I never knew that. I never knew that, you had to use modifier 58, when they're in the post-op. I didn't know that. I was like, yeah, here you go. There it is. Oh, and so then they're like, oh, okay, they understand. And sometimes they won't admit it. But it really all depends, but they're better for it because they learn. So yeah, audits are scary, but it's not so scary that you should think that, oh, I'm going to lose my job, because you're not. They had to work hard just to get you in. They're not just going to let you go so easily. So don't panic on that, but just still learn from your mistakes and move on. That's all you can do. But yeah, so there's a workload report. Like I said, you're just accounting for the time that you are in meetings, and you're taking that time out, and then you're putting what you coded for the day, and then you put how many hours that you were coding. So that makes up for everything. And let's see, there's also, sometimes you may have to fill in for your coworkers. So this is where that cross training really comes in handy. But if you have to fill in for your coworkers, take the challenge. Don't get scared. Don't show fear. And whatever you do not refuse. Oh, I don't want to do that. That's not my job. Or that's their job. I'll leave that for them when they get back. Don't do that. because when you do that, you are missing out on an opportunity to learn a different clinic. And you never know what learning something else, what doors will it open for you then. So that's what I'm saying. Don't ever lose any opportunities to learn. That is the best way, because if you're not regularly in that clinic, it's nice to get that fresh set of eyes to see what will a coder see. Well, Blue, if I've never coded for urology and I only code for mom and baby, how am I supposed to learn that? Laura always used to say, when you get your certification, you should be able to code anywhere. You should be able to spend a couple of days getting to know and navigate around that section of the book, and you should be able to code anywhere. And she said, it may seem like it's overwhelming. She goes, but once you get used to it, you will get used to it. And it's just, as you learned that clinic that you're in, you can learn another clinic. Well, no, Blue, I'm too slow. Nobody is too slow. Nobody is too slow when they want to be engaged, when they want to learn more about coding. If you want to get really comfortable with it, you will be okay with those uncomfortable moments of, going and looking at all these other different clinics. But yeah, don't ever dismiss the challenge of, taking on another clinic and seeing. When I had a partner a few years ago, we were working on the orthopedic clinic together. And so she had to go on leave, and it was emergency leave. So I said, okay, well, let's plan for contingency. Give me your work, or let me know what you need to have done, so that way I can go ahead and fill in, because we used to do a week on, week off. And so everything that came into the clinic, she would work on for one whole week, and then she would have the following week to catch up and finish. So she had 2 weeks to finish 1 week's worth of encounters that came in. And then when it was not her week, then it was my week. And so we did that. That was how we worked those clinics out. And so I told her, I said, let me know what you need done while you're gone, so that way I can go ahead and pick up the slack. And she told me no. She told me no. And I said, why? And she said, well, our supervisor hasn't given us direction. The supervisor doesn't have to give us direction, because we should be able to sort this out as adults. And we want the stuff to be done. It's not an excuse just because you're not here. Oh, that's your work. It's not an excuse for it not to be done. The bottom line is the mission needs to get done, which is this stuff needs to be coded in a timely manner before it gets hit for audits, before it gets hit for all these other things. It needs to be submitted timely. So let me know. She fought me the whole time. Nope, not giving it to me. And she was going to lock it in her desk. Oh. So I went to the supervisor and I said, this isn't going to work. I'm trying to help her out because I don't want this stuff to be, not done. And she's like, well, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, Blue. And I'm like, are you serious? And I told my boss, I was like, are you serious? And she's like, don't worry, I'll get it for you. So sure enough, as soon as she left, my boss got the keys, opened up the cabinet where the records were at, and I got the records. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So all of the easy stuff was done, and I got all the hard stuff, and that was what was left. So I said, that's fine, I'll get it done. So we had a swing coder who would swing and help in different clinics. And so she came in and she's like, well, I'm here to help you pick up the slack. And so I said, okay. So I gave her the easier of the stuff that was left. But I took on the harder stuff because I already knew, because she was like kind of lost and she didn't really know, but she knew enough to get around in that clinic. So I was like, okay, don't worry. I'll take the harder stuff. You could take the easier stuff. And sure enough, it got pulled. It got pulled for audits. And so it was just a miracle that it was done. It wasn't a miracle, actually. It was forethought and planning. But it shouldn't have had to take all of that running around to get it done. It should have been like, okay, this is where you got to work with your coworkers and you got to be able to see and forecast these things. And I knew that my partner was going to go on leave. And so I was already forecasting, okay, the stuff needs to be done. Let's get together and get it done. And she was very stubbornly holding out and saying no. She was waiting for the supervisor. You don't have to always wait on the supervisor, especially when you know the stuff has to be done. It's stupid, you know, but there are some people that they have to absolutely have that direction. I don't know. It's just, I don't know, maybe it's just me. But common sense. But anyway, how come you always MK, hi Blue, hi. Thanks for your knowledge and expertise in coding. I have learned a lot from the evolving world of coding. I'm glad. Hi, Cinda Marie. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for the blue hearts. So, but yeah, that's what we do when we are planning. So even when you are working in clinics, you don't always have to wait on things. You can take initiative, and especially when it's going to affect the whole department, you want to make sure that you're taking initiative. So does anybody else have any questions? But it's exciting and it's a lot. And I always recommend taking notes if you are getting trained by somebody. The worst thing I have seen is medical coders who ask for help and then they're asking the same question over and over again. They kind of take advantage of the fact that you were patient enough with them to answer the question the first time, and instead of writing it down, they don't. And then they come back and then they're like, well, I forgot. Okay, well, write it down, take a note, and I can understand if you're taking notes and you don't really kind of get your notes, because when you're writing stuff down, sometimes it's kind of hard. And if you come back and you're like, well, I remember this part, but can you repeat this other part again? That is okay. So just make sure that you're being respectful of the veteran coder's time. Can you learn medical coding on your own, just reading medical coding books? Yes. Miss, do you recommend buying all 3 practice exam books you have recommended? Which ones, Miss? Jamie says, I have a notebook and it has all kinds of notes. You see, there you go. Sometimes you have to just kind of flip back at those notes, but you do have to make sure that you're showing that you're doing your research. If you are not showing that you're doing your research, that's a problem for a lot of these veteran coders when they see brand new medical coders, because some are not going to be so willing to help you because no one helped them. And I think that that's sad. It's sad when veteran coders perpetuate the cycle of not helping because they weren't helped. Nobody helped me, I had to figure it out. But it doesn't mean you have to do the same thing, because then it's just leading to that vicious, ugly cycle. Miss says, I love taking notes. All 3 that you have on your table. So this one here, yes, I do recommend. This one here, I do recommend. And this one, I definitely recommend. So yes, I do recommend them. You do need all of them because they all have a different purpose. Now, this book, yes, there are a few mistakes in it. However, when you are looking at this book, it is about paying attention to detail. If you are not paying attention to detail, oh yeah. So this is a very good one for getting that. It also has those soft questions for anatomy and medical terminology and, compliance and regulatory. So it's very, very helpful. It has all of the answers as well. And that other book has a rationale. But this one also has a lot of those long questions that I like. And if you already have studied medical coding and you just need to practice on the questions, just go to the question section of each chapter. So that way you can just use this to help you to test your speed. That is a problem with a lot of times when people are studying, they're not testing their speed. You can read and read and read all day, but if you're not also testing your speed, that could be a problem when you go in for your exam. A lot of people will tell me, well, Blue, I studied really hard and, I did all these flashcards, but they didn't test themselves on speed and they ran out of time. Every single time they ran out of time on the exam. So that is something to think about. Now, this book I recommend because it has all of the explanation for the diagnosis coding and the inpatient procedure coding. So when if you are not sitting for like the CCS or the CCA or the CIC, and you just need practice on the diagnosis coding, you can still use this book. Just skip the PCS questions. It does have a section in here for emergency room coding as well. So, and it has a rationale. So again, very useful because all of the exams, they all test on the emergency room. So a very good resource. But yes, I do recommend them all. Okay, I was wondering to get all three or not. Thank you. Jamie says, no, I just get busy and do mainly all on my own now. Good. I work with two sweet ladies that have helped me a whole lot. Good. That's awesome. Ilanda, if you self-study, can you get an externship or internship to properly learn coding? If yes, do you know how to find one? You don't necessarily need to get an internship or an externship. Some people kind of get stuck into that frame of mind like they need it. But what you learn through self-study is going to be the same as if you were learning it in a school. And people who learn in a school, they don't get internships, externships a lot of times. So, because they don't, they just apply for jobs. I didn't have an internship or an externship, and I was still able to get my first job. And, I was still able to learn coding on the job. That was what I do. Or what I did rather. So when I do that, you just learn that way. It's going to take a while for you to feel confidence. And even if you get an internship, externship, a lot of times you're not even really doing a lot of coding. Or if you are doing some kind of coding, it's not anything that's too like in detail, because they will save like the really complicated ones for their people that's paid at that place. Sometimes it's the easier stuff that they give you to kind of get you to build your confidence. So again, you really don't need it. And a lot of times these internships, externships are in partnership with these other trade schools or with the colleges. So, Kraft says, for terminology and anatomy class, I found out the textbooks have guidebooks, so I purchased them. I want to make sure I have several different questions to study. Cool. Hi, Sandra. Thank you for all the blue hearts. MK, the study guide is amazing. CPC study guide, it helped me to pass. Which book did you mention for facility outpatient coding? That's this one. Jamie, I didn't and got a job too. That's right. So, it is possible to get a job. Even without a internship or externship. So, all right. And Jamie says, a lot of the internships cost a lot of money. So, typically you're supposed to work for free on those, and the employer may give you a stipend, but you shouldn't have to pay for an internship either. Although I have heard of some places trying to charge for an internship. So, but yeah. So anyway, but yeah, so those are some of the things that you can expect when you're applying for jobs. Hi, Sam. Those are some of the things that you can expect when you are starting to work in the facility. Just be prepared for anything, and don't dictate where you want to go. That's another thing I see coders doing, is that they say, well, I want to be put in an easy clinic, or can you start me off with something that's not so hard? You have to be willing to accept challenges as they come. And if you are not willing to accept challenges, that's part of the problem. And that's where they can kind of hesitate to not, want to hire new people, is when they kind of want to be scared. Guys, you've gone over these things, you've passed a proficiency exam, you have your certification, you should be able to tackle this challenge. But it's up to you guys. Can't be scared of it. That's the number one thing I hear. I'm scared. Nothing to be scared of, guys. It's a new position. That's all it is. It is just a new position, and it's not meant to do anything except make you grow. It's good for resume. I wouldn't go for a ward clerk. That's more of like, from what I know of a ward clerk. Now it could be different, but what I know of a ward clerk, that is somebody that is like kind of like medical assistant-y type-ish. And so you don't want to go down that road. It's better if you go in billing, or it's better if you go in prior authorizations. It's better if you go that way. Or even with medical records, you can also go there, but that would be a lot better than the other way. At least I think so. Let's see. Tawana, thank you for the blue heart. She says, your last live video was inspired. Sarah, you rock. Don't listen to no one. Okay. Gail, when you are a brand new coder, does someone check your work daily? And how do you ramp up to meet production quotas? So they will check your work. And like I said, sometimes they'll do like batch audits. So basically they'll give you 10 records to code. And then when you coded them, you'll give it back to them, and they'll look at your coding and see if it's correct. And then if it is, then you can go ahead and submit those. If it's not, they will stop and they will explain why. Some places are like this. Most places I know are like this. And then you can go on to the next 10. And then once you pass that 50, like if they're testing you on 50, sometimes they test you on 100, but a lot of places will test you on 50. If they test you on 50, then you can just move on. And then when you do that, then you will be under regular production standards and regular accuracy standards. And so when somebody is coming to pull your records, they're doing a standard audit. So the way that I tell people how to ramp up on their speed and things like that is, you're not going to hit 90 your first week. You're not even going to hit 90 maybe even in your first month. But you need to show progress. As long as you're continually showing progress, you're going to be fine. It's when you don't show progress and you kind of stall out and you kind of get stuck, and you're not asking for help, that's when it becomes a problem. But as long as you're showing consistent improvement every single time. And sometimes it's just that we get stuck on like what we think and what we, should we or shouldn't we? Sometimes you just have to make a decision and move on. Either way, if you were on the fence and you couldn't get help and you tried to look up an answer and you couldn't find anything, just decide and do the best you can and move on. If anything happens, it'll come back. Oh, it'll come back quick. Sarah, my mother always says, if it's none of your business what others think of you. That's right. Gail says, love yourself. Thank you. Raquela, where do we look to find a job with no experience? Everywhere. And even when they're asking for experience, you still apply anyway. If you're waiting for them to say this is an entry-level position, you don't have to have any experience, you will be looking forever, because employers are inherently lazy. And when they are looking for a coder, they want somebody they can plug in right away, that is not going to take a whole lot of training. So this is why I tell brand new coders, bring your A game, make sure that you're still working on your workbooks, make sure that you are doing your research and you're reading your coding guidelines, because when you get your assessment test, and if they say, okay, we're going to take a chance on you, and you do really well in this assessment test, it's not going to matter, because sometimes, as far as like experience goes, because sometimes these employers get so desperate for people that they're like, okay, we need somebody now, and no experienced coder is applying with us, so let's just go ahead and just, bring a new person in. So they're going to try to bring the best new person in that they can. So yes, have a really good resume, have a really good cover letter, and make sure that you are going in there with all the knowledge that you can. So that would be what I would recommend. Jamie says, I did 200 coding claims yesterday. See, there you go. And you're building up to that, you know. Better to build up and build up correctly than to try to do a bunch of stuff and do it wrong, you know. Gail, I have an interview for charge capture rep for a physician network. They like that I passed my CCSP. Oh, there you go. That's awesome. And that's very helpful for them because that CCSP is that mastery of the outpatient setting. And that's physicians because that's how physicians get paid, is on the outpatient side, as far as like, you know, their workload capture is captured with CPT and all that good stuff. The ICD-10 PCS, that's all the inpatient stuff for the facility. That's how the facilities get their money, to pay for the staff, to pay for, you know, all the supplies and all the equipment. That's how they get paid, is through that ICD-10 PCS. But yeah, so, but that's awesome, Gail. So be waiting to hear from you. Yeah, Tawana, a lot of people like last night's video. I got a couple of emails today about it too. I thought that was nice. But yeah, so when you're starting out, just take it a day at a time, just one step at a time. It'll be all right. You know, learn from your fellow coworkers, ask questions, make sure you write things down. Don't take advantage of veteran coders, because sometimes, you know, they may or they may not help you. And if they're helping you, it means that they're showing you kindness. And because there's some that won't, and they won't help you. Somebody was commenting last time that, their coworker was saying that they're not a teacher, so they don't have to teach them, which I thought was awful. But what are you going to do? You know, and unfortunately, sometimes that discourages people. And people can be discouraged very easily, and I know this. And so it takes a thick skin when you get into this industry. It takes a thick skin for you to stay in this industry. So that's why I tell people the best thing that you can do, especially if you know that there's nobody to help you around, that you start learning on your own. Just do the best you can. Reach out, find a mentor. If you're really stuck, find a tutor. There's a ton of tutors on LinkedIn, and I'm a tutor myself. Shell says, I am taking my courses to pass my CPC test. I want to know what certificate is best for working from home. There is no best for working from home credential. You can get that with your CPC. But the problem you may run into is being brand new. Now, because of the pandemic, there has been a shift in that. Sometimes employers are okay now with hiring brand new coders remotely, and other times they're going to want to train you at the facility for a couple of weeks or maybe a month, and then they'll send you home. And sometimes they will just, you know, let you be virtual from home, and they will train you from home. But I will say, and I always tell people, especially if you have no idea, you've never been in the medical coding field before, is that you're going to want to be around veteran coders. You're going to want to be around medical coders because you're going to have questions in the beginning. And as you know, you may think that you got this down, and you've got a really good school and they're training you well. When you get in the real world, you're going to see that it's way different from the book. The book is going to be very, like, you know, clean, no mess ups, no nothing. And then it's going to be, you know, all of that other stuff in there. So when you get in the real world, you'll see that it's completely different from the book. The book is so nice and clean compared to what you'll see in the real world with these doctors. And sometimes they have their attitudes. Sometimes they don't want to document. And sometimes, you know, you kind of have to talk to them a little bit and let them know why. Because if you just immediately start querying your provider without, you know, interacting with them first, they may get defensive, you know, and that's something else too. You know, that's something you have to be aware of. If you are working remotely from home and you've never been as a medical coder before, and now you're trying to sit here and query providers, how are you going to do that? And if you have somebody walk you through the process, okay, now you're missing that human contact, because that provider can ignore an email. and it's going to make things a lot harder. So if you can work in a place first, I strongly recommend it. However, people don't listen to me, so if you want to go ahead and work in at home right away, then by all means. But I'm letting you know now, it's a little bit of a struggle. I'm just saying. Priscilla, I take my CCS beginning of next month. I feel unready. Your videos have helped a lot. Thank you, Blue. You're welcome. If you feel unready, you're supposed to say you feel ready. Christina says, I may not have a job in the field yet, but I have a job interview today and got hired on the spot. You just said that just now, Christina. How long have you been in here? Oh my God, that's so amazing. Congratulations. There you go. There you go. That is awesome. That is so awesome, Christina. That is very awesome. Shell says, this makes sense. Thank you so much. I do not mind going in person first and learning from the vets. There you go. Jamie says, amen. Shell says, no, I'm all ears. Okay. Miss says, Dr. Physician, #goals. There you go. And then Christina's getting lots of congratulations. That is so awesome. Shell says, what is the difference in all of these certificates, CPC and CCS? Christina says, it may be retail, but it's something. Congratulations. Congratulations. Yes. Jamie says, I wouldn't mind working at home doing medical coding. I like to interact with providers on site. Oh, I wouldn't like working from home. All right. What is the difference? CPC is all outpatient coding. So you have to know outpatient rules. And the CCS is inpatient and outpatient. So you have to know inpatient coding rules and outpatient coding rules. You have to be able to code from the CPT manual and the ICD-10 PCS manual, depending on what setting the question is about, inpatient or outpatient. The CCS is the gold standard of medical coding credentials. You have to be prepared. I tell people all the time, you have your choice between credentials. I did my breakdown video on getting credentials and how much it costs. So that's something else that you may want to consider. Look at the cost of getting the CPC versus getting the CCS. But make sure if you're going to sit for that CCS that you are well trained, that you know inpatient coding and you know outpatient coding. You can go from the CPT manual and the ICD-10 PCS manual. And of course your diagnosis book. The CPC is 100 questions on their test. It is a 4-hour exam. And it is multiple choice. And let's see, what else? It's a 70% pass rate, where the pass rate with AHIMA is a 300 because they scale their tests differently. So it is a very difficult test at CCS. That is the gold standard of medical coding credentials. So I would encourage you to continue to do your research on AAPC.com or at AHIMA.org, so that way you can really kind of dive into the differences between the two. You can also review my videos where I am talking about the differences, and I did a lot of that this week. Yes. Yes, Miss a troll. Yes. You're welcome. You're welcome. So, any other questions before I wrap this one up tonight? I'm good on time. I just hit 59 minutes. So, there's more congratulations. Okay, cool. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you guys so much for joining me. If you are looking for your job, don't get discouraged. Keep going. Make sure your resume looks good. Make sure that you are prepared for a no, and keep going. Don't get discouraged just because you hear no the first time. Register with a temp agency who specializes in medical professions in your area. Like, subscribe, share, and I will see y'all next time. Bye.